Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Tulley, President and Executive Writing Coach at Defend and Publish, and welcome to episode 91, What Can You Get Done in a Day? Based on our episode from last week, episode 90, which was about fixed schedule productivity, where you map different tasks onto different time periods, I decided to look at a whole week of what I actually did in a day, just to share a sense of what I actually was able to accomplish. So I would say this is a pretty typical week. This was a typical 7-day period. And what it shows is I got about 8 hours of writing completed in a week. For me, that is my sort of minimum threshold. I like to do at least 10 to 12, particularly 2 hours every weekday, but sometimes that's not realistic, and it wasn't realistic in this case. But I thought it was fair to just show you what a week looks like, that I felt like I wasn't overstressed. I was able to get some of the teaching things done. I got some writing things finished. I had some family time, but something that I'm just getting more and more realistic about when I think about time use. So we do have a lot of clients that will eventually come to us that are burned out. They've been working, 60, 70 hours a week. Last week's episode talked a lot about a post by Robert Talbert, who he talks about how he only works 50 hours a week. And so he has to make choices about what scholarly writing he's going to do and what teaching tasks he's going to do. But many of our clients, by the time they get to us, some of them have been regularly clocking 70 hours a week, and they feel like they're not getting anywhere. So I know this would have been episode 89, I also talked about how I got back on track writing after not writing for a while, and I'd been back at it for at least a week. This actually captures what it looks like when I'm in a regular writing rhythm. So if you're listening to this on audio only, I will describe what's on screen, but if you're on YouTube, you can actually see a picture. And what I'm showing is a week template. This one was completed in Excel, and it just shows 7 days, and then the time is blocked from 5 a.m. until around 8 p.m. Now, I always will get the question when I show this to faculty that I work with, and they'll say, well, what time did you go to bed? For the record, it's 10:30, because getting up at 5 a.m. is just way too early for me, and I need my sleep. So I'm not doing much out of there. And so that means I really have to make the hours during that time frame count. I know I talk about this a lot on the podcast, but I'm also an academic parent with 2 school-age kids. And so, like many parents, the school day provides some boundaries to my work life. So that means anywhere in the neighborhood between 8 a.m. and about 2:20 p.m. is what I have when I have children in school. And theoretically, I'm not caring for anyone other than myself. So I thought I'd just do a quick walkthrough about some things that are movable, some things that weren't movable, and then just how I generally think about time use a little bit in a day. So what I'm showing on the screen is basically the 7 days blocked out by the hour, and then different activities are color coded. So just a couple of fixed things. On my schedule, I have what I call the morning hustle and the afternoon hustle. And that sounds like I might be going to the gym. I'm not. This is when I'm actually working through all of the tasks that take up a morning. So my morning really starts around 5 a.m. and it's really not complete until around 8 a.m., sometimes 8:30. And so for me, that includes getting me ready, getting both of my children ready. They can do it on their own, but obviously there are some things I might need to help with. Packing school lunches, making sure everybody has breakfast, make sure I get my morning cup of coffee, because I definitely need that. All the commuting, the signing of permission slips, the plugging of, finding all the laptops and everything everybody needs. Yes, I have 2 children that should be, in theory, doing this for themselves, but there's always some intervention required on my part. And then I also take my younger child to school. So I have part of my hustle is battling the traffic at the elementary school, or I'm sorry, the middle school, in the morning, which can, could take as long as 40 minutes. So I know that time's not really free. Now, can I do anything else during that time? Yes. So sometimes in that morning hustle, I'm lucky to have a few minutes here or there. And what I'm doing in that morning is look, I've talked about morning rituals before on this podcast, but I usually have at least 15 minutes once I wake up at least one child that I can get a cup of coffee, take a minute to look in my journal, write in my journal. I mentioned that I like to do a daily devotional. So I always take a look at that. In general, but I'm not doing any major tasks. So I might be able to also dash off a few emails somewhere in there, or pay a few bills. Sometimes this is when I'll do some bill pay. If I have, say, 15 minutes waiting for a child, waiting for, breakfast to cook or something like that, I'll pay a bill. But I'm not expecting to get any real work done. And I've mentioned many times before that one of the things I like about being back on campus, and I know at the time we're listening to this would be in September 2022, October 2022. And we're back on campus at my university. So I'm able to go back and write in the library. And I've mentioned many, many times why I like to do that. Lots of people have their favorite writing spot. Mine just happens to be on campus. I'm kind of old school. I like the library. But one of the things it enables me to do is that I don't allow myself to do anything else, just the way my schedule worked out, until I go get a second cup of coffee. So I should track these on here. You would probably see 4 in a day. But what I do next is I get a cup of coffee and I go right to the library. And so on my schedule, Monday through Thursday, you'll see between 8:30 and about 10:30, 10:45, I did manage to get in and do some writing. So I had a little bit more than 8 hours, considering, what time I had in there. I mentioned what I was doing in those episodes, or what I was doing in those writing sessions in episode 89. I gave some highlights about how I kind of think through a writing session. I will do another episode specifically on like start to finish a whole writing session, what I do. But so basically I knocked out the writing before I did anything else. I didn't even go to my office. I went straight to the library to do it. And then from the library, I went straight to teaching, and I teach a class every day at 11 on Monday through Thursday. So my library spot and my teaching spot are not all that far apart from each other. They're, maybe a 7-minute walk between them. And this is a little bit intentional. I like to write in the library anyway, but when I'm able to select my classes, I generally select my classes in the building closest to the library, because this allows me to kind of write until the last second before I can get to a teaching spot. After that, then this gets a little bit messy after lunch. In general, I have between around 12:30 and 2:20 open on any given day. And I'll talk about Friday in a second, but in general, I have that. So a lot of times my next move is going to grab some lunch. I do have a workshop on Wednesdays. I run every day from 1 to 2. So sometimes I have to settle for what I would call a coffee lunch, which sometimes is cup of coffee number 3, and I don't actually eat lunch. Sometimes I try to get a lunch. I know I've talked on the podcast and other episodes about having, trying to get back to basics and healthy eating habits and all that. And I'll do an upcoming episode on that as well. But on Wednesdays, I'm just kind of realistic about it. I just try to eat a really big breakfast on Wednesday, knowing I've got about 30 minutes between coming off of teaching and preparing for a workshop that I have to run. I'm not going to sit in it. So, that's one of the times where I just see I could probably do a little bit better with time management, but the way it laid out this semester, it's just kind of crazy on Wednesdays for that reason. Tuesdays, this will be the only thing that you'll see on my schedule that looks like physical activity. Just the way things are working out this semester, I have one scheduled physical activity at the moment. I work with a personal trainer once a week on Tuesdays after I teach. And so that right now is my only commitment. But it's not showing on this calendar because I'm trying to be accurate in sharing, but starting with the next Friday, I am going to pick up a weekly tennis game on Friday mornings. And so that's going to mean probably in any given week, I might have 2 whole hours of exercise, maybe. And that's all it's going to be for a while. Just where my schedule is at the moment with the intensity of my kids' activities this fall. I'm just living with that, and then knowing I need to, take a walk every day if I can. So sometimes on campus where you'll see some holes on my schedule for those of you that are looking at it live. And that's sometimes what I'm doing. I won't have an activity listed. That's because I'm getting up from my desk and just taking a quick walk around campus or going to talk to a colleague or something like that. So really from the morning hustle to writing to teaching, once I finish with teaching around 12:30, I have a minute to sort of regroup, catch my breath, get some lunch. As I mentioned, on Tuesdays, I go to training. But then in the afternoon, between that time when I get out of class and 2:20 when I have to leave to get to the school to do another pick up to take home, I do a variety of things. I usually do some course preparation. I do some grading. I record these podcasts. So one of these is being recorded at 1:34, which is right in the slot where I have this open afternoon time. And then sometimes I'll do some errands that have to be done that I would really like to not take a child with me. Things that just take a while that are kind of boring or I just don't want a lot of input about. So for example, buying a lot of school items at the beginning of this year. I have many that I need to return, and I really don't want to drag a child with me because I don't want to buy something else. I just want to return the item, and I can do it a lot faster on my own. So I try not to do too many of these types of errands in the week, but there's usually at least one day that I'm just trying to knock a few things out where I could do them by myself. And then every day between 2:20 and about 3:20 is what I call the afternoon hustle. The way that my pickup is for school, so many academic parents that are doing pickups, you might sympathize with this, but I've got about 30 minutes I have to sit in a pickup line where my car is parked. I can't move and I'm kind of trapped in it. And usually I can't get out of the car either. So I can't use the time to go take a quick walk and leave it parked. I'm in a pickup line. And so I have found that using that time to do a lot of really annoying kinds of things, like having to sit on hold on the phone or having to make a doctor's appointment or something like that. I do a lot of that type of work in that afternoon hustle. So it's not just sitting there. The other thing that I will do in there is once things calm down a little bit, we're at the start of the semester, but once things calm down a little bit in October, when a lot of my children's activities will start falling off, I know this is also a time where I like to read an academic article. Like I just sit in the car, roll down the window and take a moment and read an academic article. I had mentioned in one of our very earliest episodes that we've ever done on this podcast that I like to do academic reading at night because I'm now getting up so early for my middle schooler and my high schooler. I've stopped reading at night. I just can't stay awake. So this is a spot where that might happen in the afternoon hustle. So other things that are on here that would be of note is that I do have a lot of kids' activities blocked out, taking virtually all of Saturday morning through the fall. And then most weeknights, I usually have some where I have to even rely on another parent. So for example, on Tuesday nights, I teach from 5 to 8, and I have to drop off one of my children going to an activity before I ever go to class. So that's noted on there. And then just a few other things that are noted on here in terms of time and schedule. Fridays, I don't teach at all. So this is when either I schedule doctor's appointments or my children have them. So that's when we go to the dentist, or that's when I have, the guy to come and fix the roof if it's somebody that has to fix something like that, or a maintenance repair. Sometimes that's a time where I need to, schedule some kind of service repair person, but Fridays are usually when that happens. And that doesn't mean I'm not writing, but it generally means I'm working from home, and I might be still doing some writing, but it's not a guarantee based on what time of day it is. And this particular week that I'm showing was one of those weeks where I was at an off-campus appointment virtually all day. So I didn't get any writing done on that day. Couple other things to note on the calendar. I have a couple spots on there where I noted that I'm sort of resetting our house. I know a lot of academic parents talk about this, but many other people talk about things like when there's laundry happening or cooking or any of these other things. Those are kind of those little moments noted on my calendar. And for me, these are usually sometime between 4 and 6 before all the kids' activities ramp up at night. And I'll do some laundry, I'll do some cleaning, that kind of thing. What isn't showing on here is any semblance of dinner. I have 2 children, I have a partner, but yeah, at this particular time in our schedule, and that's one of the reasons why I want to talk about what can and can't be done in a day, we could not pull off having dinner together as a family on these nights, primarily because both of my children have night activities that are all over the place right now during football season, or U.S. football season. So will that change once those activities are gone and dropped off the schedule by end of October? Hopefully so. But at the moment, it's just not there. That doesn't mean we're not eating. It just means it's sort of a free for all. And we just try to do the best we can with figuring out when people will eat. It's not an activity we're doing as a family. When we are doing an activity as a family, though, on this particular week, on the Sunday, we were gone all day at a baseball game. So that whole day was gone. And then I had mentioned on another podcast at one point, I'm Catholic. We do go to the Catholic Church. We go for Mass once a week. So in general, that's a Sunday night. That tends to be my time of choice. So that's when we go. But beyond that, you'll see lots of other open hours. So anybody looking at this on YouTube will see just these random spaces, and you might be wondering what the heck is going on in there. I mentioned sometimes this is me getting up and taking a walk. Sometimes this is me dealing with necessary forms I need to take care of at work, or going to our required training, or having office hours with my students. But what I wanted to capture here is just in the big strokes, what I could and could not do in a day. So what I could not do in any of these days is write for more than 2 hours. There was no time to write for more than 2 hours that I could reasonably get my hands on. It just wouldn't happen. So, after 8:30 at night, I guess in theory, I could do that, but I know I can't because I don't have the energy because I have to be up at 5 a.m. Alternatively, could I get up at, say, 4 a.m. and try to squeeze out another hour? I could, but this episode is about what could be done in a day. And if I would do something like that, it would cause a domino effect where I could not pull off some of these other things, or at least pull them off with good brain work. So I hope these strategies are useful on this particular episode. And if you have questions about this, you can definitely email me at Christine@defendandpublish.com, and I'd be happy to talk through some scheduling things with you. This is something that we do consultations on. So if you want to look at your schedule and just try to get a realistic grip on when you're doing certain activities, check out certainly that episode on fixed schedule productivity, which I'll link to in the show notes. But also feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to do half-hour consultations about your schedule. Happy writing this week.